Now, we're getting straight into our first topic. Is the revolt over benefit cuts humiliating for Keir Starmer? The government wants to press ahead with its overhaul of the welfare system, which could cut the rate of incapacity benefit and make it harder for people to access personal independence payments. Starmer says that this will save Britain £5 billion a year by 2030. However, 123 Labour MPs have signed an amendment which could kill the bill. This morning, Downing Street confirmed it is in talks with the Labour MPs about possible changes. And the Telegraph is reporting that Starmer could back down and make his own amendments. Only yesterday, he dismissed concerns, telling reporters he has a strong Labour government with a huge majority. Just have a look at what he said.
Is it tough going? Are there plenty of people and noises off? Yes, of course. There always are, there always have been, there always will be. But the important thing is to focus on the change that we want to bring.
Now, as it stands, the Commons will vote next week, as Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner made clear. Hear what she said.
Can she at least assure the House that the vote on Tuesday will actually go ahead?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I don't know if he sort of listened to what I said because I was reading off the script, but what I can tell him, and I don't need the script, we will go ahead on Tuesday.
Well, couldn't be clearer from her. But Carolyn, are we looking at a potentially deeply humiliating defeat for Keir?
No. I think what it shows is that he's hearing the concerns of some colleagues and they are prepared to communicate and see what we can do to make it better for everyone. I mean, we are a broad church. There are people, we are the same party, but we haven't all got the same belief in everything.
Where are you on this? And
I'm supporting the government.
But what do you make of your colleagues who are standing against Keir Starmer? Why are they doing it?
Because they have concerns over elements of the bill. I firmly believe that the way to change this is from within and to work to make it changed to better fit for purpose as it progresses through the House. Other people are not prepared to wait or are nervous to wait. I think we are in a difficult situation. We didn't want to come into this. We've inherited a system which is unsustainable and we have to do something. And tough decisions need tough action. And what Keir is doing is taking that tough action. And we'll talk to colleagues and see what we can do to make them feel better about it.
Christian, it doesn't sound that sort of reassuring. I mean, is it humiliating? I mean, could Keir, for example, as he suggests, just sort of back away and U-turn?
Well, I think he'll have to, because governments that don't bend tend to break. But the whole situation is an absolute farce. It's a government that's not even a year old, and already we've got a rebellion of about 120 plus Labour MPs. We're seeing briefings against the Chief Whip. We're seeing briefings against Keir Starmer's Chief of Staff. We're even seeing briefings by Rebel MPs who say they'd be quite happy to have a leadership contest and a vote of no confidence about all of this. My problem with this whole argument is not specific. It's that we're having this enormous row over a policy change that is essentially peeing in the wind. The benefits bill is set to increase from 18 billion quid, or the PIP bill, which is what this is about, is set to increase from 18 billion to 34 billion by the end of the decade. The total benefits bill is set to rise by 64 billion by the end of the decade.
Your point is it doesn't really touch the sides.
We're talking about 5 billion. It doesn't touch the sides. And if the government can't even get 5 billion through, then what hope is there for actually dealing with the much wider problem of benefits?
And so people know what this bill will say is that, especially for younger people and people that qualify because they get the necessary mark by their medical practitioners say they should be off work, that's going to be made harder. And these Rebel MPs say, well, it shouldn't. Interesting what you say, though, about the extent of the welfare bill, because yesterday Kemi Badenoch threw Starmer a kind of lifeline. She said the Tories would support the legislation if he promised to reduce welfare spending, get people off benefits and back into work, and promised to not put taxes up in the next budget. Now, Carolyn, do you think he should listen to her?
Well, the leader of the opposition is peeing in the wind, shall we say. I mean, she is partly responsible for the mess that we have inherited. It's no getting away from it. 14 years of Tory government have left this country in a dreadful state. We wouldn't be doing what we're doing now if we wasn't for that. So any advice from Kemi Badenoch is not advice that I would be advising anyone to take.
So you wouldn't be cutting the welfare bill at all, is your point, if it wasn't for, as you say, 14 years of Conservative government?
Do you know that we have we have double the number of 20-year-olds on PIP than we have people over 40. That cannot be right. People have never worked. These are young people who've never gone into work. That cannot be right. This bill is about making sure that people who can work and should work do work. And that is the bottom line in this.
Well, Christian, you're agreeing with that, right? I mean,
yeah, I think definitely there needs to be massive overhaul. I mean, one of the stats I was astonished is that actually 70% of 18 to 25-year-olds who are claiming PIP are citing mental health, not physical disability. Now, that's a major issue. And ironically, of course, I think a large part of mental health amongst young people is to do with isolation, and actually getting out the house and getting a job would help with their mental health issues. But Carolyn's right. I mean, you look at some of our largest cities, Birmingham, that you've got 30-40% of people who are on a form of welfare, and that is unaffordable.
But it seems like 123 Labour MPs are not with you and say the status quo is just fine.
Of course they are, because there are 200 Labour MPs for whom the PIP claimant count in their constituency is larger than their majority.
Well, on that note, you say that that group of Labour MPs and perhaps others are briefing against the various people that are in the court of Keir Starmer, not least his chief of staff. That has real-world implications, and what I mean by that is actually a poll that was released by YouGov today that suggests Reform, get this, could win most seats in a general election if one took place this year. Let's just have a look at the electoral map and how it would actually look. Reform would win, according to a poll that was taken today, 271, which isn't enough for a majority. Labour would win 176, less than half of the 411 it won last year. The Lib Dems would win 81, and the Tories would come in with just fourth with 46. Now, I'm going to put it over here because I think, if I'm not mistaken, that's your constituency, isn't it? I think over here, right? It looks like you could have a Reform MP.
Yeah.
Now, I want to know what you think of that, because Reform have got, at least as far as we know, some policies to reform all of this.
But they haven't got policies, Rob. They haven't got policies. It's a narrative. They tell us what we're doing wrong. They're telling us what we should be doing, but they're not actually coming forward with any policies. I've not seen a health policy from Reform. Reform would privatise the NHS. I've not seen an education policy from Reform. You know, they talk a talk.
But policies or not, the reality is that they are very popular and people are going to vote for them.
Well, yeah, and that terrifies me. And we're at the Senate election next year, and I'm really concerned that they will take some kind of hold. But people are listening to Reform because they are unhappy with politics at the moment. And that is an issue for us all. We have to find a better narrative, but the Reform narrative is not the road we should be going down.
I wonder how many politicians are quaking in their boots. Not least,
a lot.
If this is right, a lot of them are.
Yeah.
Peter, you saw that electoral map, but the central question is this embarrassing for Keir Starmer, or are the Labour MPs who are rebelling right? What do you think, Peter, in Wolverhampton?
Well, I think Keir is completely out of touch with both the party and the people on most of the issues. And my view is that Lisa Nandy should launch a leadership challenge to him. You think that who would you have instead? Lisa Nandy. Lisa Nandy. Well, seeing as we've got the deputy leader of the Welsh Labour Party, would you support her?
No, there's no vacancy.
No vacancy. Thanks, Peter. Perhaps Lisa Nandy is listening. In fact, I'm sure she is. Stay with us because we want to hear from you on all of this. Is it embarrassing for Keir Starmer, or do you think he's doing the right thing? Do these cuts impact you? They impact many, many people. Give us a call now with your thoughts. 0207 862 2222 is the number. Now, we're returning to the benefits revolt and whether it's humiliating for Keir Starmer. I'm going to go first to you, Carolyn. Now, You say this is not embarrassing for Keir Starmer. This is just what goes on in the Labour Party, but there's a bigger point to be made. Yeah,
there is a bigger point, and that the universal credit and the welfare system, the PIP, is unsustainable. There are more people, 3 million people are locked out of the workforce, which is bigger than the population of Greater Manchester. We have millions, 1 in 8 young people are not earning or learning. It's an unsustainable system. We have far too many people, and we are the only economy, the UK is the only economy which employment-wise has not recovered.
Well, just to be clear then, for our viewers and people phoning in, are you saying that a lot of people who are claiming PIP are just shirking work?
Well, no, I just think that a lot of people who are claiming PIP have gone to a doctor with a condition, and that has made them eligible for PIP now. But with the right support and the right tailored support, they could actually be in work and they could be earning. And like Christian said, people with mental health problems, the isolation is not where they should be. They should be in work.
Right.
And the OBR are actually saying by the end of this Parliament, 9 out of 10 people on PIP will not be affected.
Well, I mean, whether or not there'll be a lot of people who are claiming PIP at the moment who will be, to say the least, very worried. 123 Labour MPs have said we're not going to support this. Embarrassing for Keir Starmer, but also doesn't seem to address the real problem, as you put it. I think you poetically described it as peeing in the wind.
Yeah, but that's in terms of cutting £5 billion from a budget that's still rising by £64 billion. I mean, it doesn't make any improvement to our country's finances. The problem is, and there's been some great work done on this by the journalist Fraser Nelson, formerly of The Spectator, who did a Dispatch documentary. Arguably, I do not feel a huge amount of anger towards people who are on a benefits lifestyle because the work incentives are no longer there. If you go to left-behind deprived cities up and down this country, like Blackpool, for example, there are almost no jobs, and the jobs that there are, you earn less than you do on the benefit system. The incentives are completely the wrong way around, and you've got to deal with both the welfare reform and improving the quality of work at the same time.
So not just cutting benefits isn't the answer. Tara, you're in the West Midlands. Now, we heard just before about the impact on this on some people. Does this impact you?
Yes, it impacts me hugely. I'm 35 years old and I've got many disabilities, 2 sleeping disorders, narcolepsy, cataplexy, sleep apnea and fibromyalgia and many others. Terrible. And I struggle daily. I'm a single parent, just gone through domestic violence and everything, and it's very hard for me daily. I have carers 3 times a day, and I've tried to do normal work, get into normal jobs, and I just can't handle it. I'm self-employed and I'm trying when I can to do what I can. I've just written a book and I'm trying my hardest, but sometimes it's just not possible.
So, Tara, you're somebody that's clearly doing everything that you can. Can I ask you, when you hear about these cuts, right, how worried are you? And to that extent, do you support these MPs that are saying, look, let's just keep it as it is, absolutely no cuts?
I think what needs to happen, they need to put other strategies in place, like to help support people that need helping with business plans and also helping around welfare, because it's really difficult. Doing the PIP form in the first place is really difficult, and the whole assessment is difficult as it is. Yeah. So if they were to make that harder, you wouldn't have no chance. I mean, a 9 out of 10, you get rejected the first time anyway. If you don't have somebody standing by your side, it's really difficult. So I really think they need to think about different strategies before they just cut things.
Right, and supporting, as you say, supporting people back into work. Thanks for your call, Tara, and we certainly wish you well and wish you luck with everything you're doing. I'll go over to Paul Talbot. Ian, is Keir Starmer right? Is this embarrassing for him? What do you think?
It's totally embarrassing for him. He's never in the country anyway, dealing with what's happening here. But can I say, I'm from Neath, I am Neath Talbot, same constituency as the lady on there now. She's got, talk about talking the talk, they need to aim at the youngsters, okay? When I was 17, 18 and left school, I was forced onto a government scheme for 2 years. Dole and PIP wasn't around. But welfare benefits, it wasn't an option. And these youngsters, she can see where the problem's coming from, yet they're aiming There's a broad brush approach, okay, and they're terrifying. There's a friend of mine who lives in the same street. She's 61 years of age.
Right.
She's mentally ill with 3 different diagnoses. She's absolutely petrified. That lady can see where the problem's coming from. It's the youngsters, 20 years of age. There's millions of them not working.
Well, you can speak directly to Carolyn.
He's a constituent. Hello, Ian. Nice to speak to you.
And you.
Well, what do you say to him? That it's young people.
For a start, this lady who's 61, we don't know whether she'll qualify for PIP or not. And we won't know until that assessment starts, and there will be a whole package around it. And I'd be happy to talk to her on a one-to-one level if things go badly for her. And with yourself, Ian, just get in touch. But this is a problem. It's an overburdened system. We have to stop saying that we're taking money off people who are genuinely cannot work.
But to Ian's point, this is about young people. When he was a youngster...
It's not just about young people.
But take his point that this is about young people who are immediately taken from school where there's no hope.
I cannot deny he has a point. I've said it myself.
Right.
The big problem is people are finding it easier to go straight onto PIP because they are going with illnesses which currently qualify them for PIP, which under the new assessment may not qualify them from PIP. And what we are going to do is say to these people, here is a package. We will work with you to make sure that you get a job and you go. And we didn't have that opportunity.
And so you'll get less points. I'm going to put it that way crudely because that's how PIP is assessed.
But we don't know what the criteria is yet.
Well, it's quite clear. I mean, they've proposed what the criteria is. For certain mental health conditions, you'll get less points.
You will get less points and you have to get 4. But there are some people, young people, for example, with children, they may lose out on the PIP, but they will gain when the child poverty strategy comes out. So just because they lose it in one part, it doesn't mean to say, and they may prefer to be in work.
Well, let's go to David. You're in Surrey. We heard what Ian had to say. What do you think? Is this embarrassing for Keir Starmer, or do you think it's right, at least to begin cutting the benefit system?
Well, it may be both. Basically, you would expect Labour to help the poorer and those in need. However, people have got to be motivated. I know of several instances where people definitely need PIPs because they've got long-term issues, but they don't necessarily need the amount of money that they're being given. Take myself. I have had depression for about 12 out of the last 15 years, and some days, it's been very tough. I've even, tried to commit suicide.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I've had a stroke, I've had heart attack, I've had cancer, but, sometimes you don't feel like it, but I try and force myself to go out.
Right.
And some people seem to have lost this ability. Now, I prefer some of the money, as one of your MPs has said there, to encourage people where they need to see a psychologist, a psychiatrist, to be retrained, but also to help them with, should we say, bus fares, train fares, etc., or retraining, so they can actually see something positive out of the money that is being given to them.
Well, thanks. I think, David, you put that point really clearly. Look, it's not just about cutting benefits. You have to provide not just the incentives, but the practical tools very quickly to the two to get people into work.
I think David raises a really good point, which I think is trying to be addressed by the package of reforms, which is that at the moment, an awful lot of people are being signed on to benefits, and then that's it. That's the last that they hear from the state. And actually, it would be far better for that money to go towards mental health support if they need it, or at the very least, just check in every couple of years, make sure that they're attending job appointments, make sure they're getting out the house, they're trying to help themselves. And because at the moment, I feel like if some people are being signed on to benefits and that's it, that's their life sorted, and that's not right.
Well, a lot of people will be saying that's maybe a great idea, but try getting an appointment with a GP or a NHS psychologist. But thank you, David. After the break, I'm going to go to you first, because it's not just about the revolt, it's how it looks politically, in fact, how it is. Keir Starmer has had to U-turn on the energy cap, right? Here's another example where, despite having a massive majority in Parliament, you've clearly got a very big schism, a very big movement amongst the Labour Parliamentary Party that are saying, look, Keir, you and your politics are not for us. There's rumours of there's rumours of perhaps even a new leadership campaign amongst disquieted MPs. What's really going on? It doesn't look like it's a happy ship considering how many MPs you've got. Yeah, well, for a start, I said at the beginning, we are a broad church. We are a broad church, so people are entitled to an opinion, which, because we have a democracy that allows us, we may be part of the same party, but we'll have differences. The fact that the number 10 and Keir are now talking and have been talking to colleagues who have issues shows that there's grown-up politics going on here. We're listening to people's concerns. We're trying to put together something which will actually make this more palatable. There's that. It's certainly not embarrassing. What I would say is, when difficult decisions have got to be made, there will always be people who object to it, but they're not the ones making the decisions. Somebody's got to be in charge. Keir is in charge. When I hear people, and nobody dare say to me that they want to challenge Keir, that is when I cannot tolerate the disloyalty. Every single one of the Labour MPs got elected on a manifesto which was Labour Party led by Keir Starmer. But here's the thing. He is our leader. You are one of the reasons people like you, Carolyn, right, is that you call it like it is. Those 123 MPs, why are they rebelling? Who are they? And why isn't it embarrassing for Keir? But I think some of them for some, and I don't want to insult colleagues, but for some they are new and they are concerned. And what are they concerned about? Well, they're concerned about that map that you showed earlier on. I mean, they're concerned about, could I potentially lose my seat? And there's a long way between now and the next general election, but they're not used to it. So some of them are concerned. Some of them have been pressured, which I've got to say, I've not had a lot of pressure from my constituents. I've had far more on assisted dying, but they are being put under pressure by different groups. A lot of people don't understand what we are actually offering, what we're trying to do, so they are pressuring MPs to do something that they think is right, but people really need to take stock of the whole package and not just concentrate on the headlines. But nobody would dare say to me that they want to challenge Keir Starmer because they know that I would not tolerate such nonsense. Well, I'm not sure how well that would go down, but nevertheless, I mean, here you have a majority of this size. If you think about, it hasn't been a majority of this size, Boris, but before that, the biggest was Margaret Thatcher, Blair, and there was almost nothing of this kind. No. So what's really going on here? Well, I think the one thing I have to say in defence of Keir Starmer is that because of the volatility of our politics, as Carolyn points to, the idea that the new MPs are loyal, it's just died. And I was always wondering, because we saw this level of disloyalty under Boris as well, and I thought, is it because he's quite a bad leader, he's not a people person? Is it because there was COVID and lockdown and they didn't learn how to behave properly? No, it seems to be a permanent feature now that Prime Ministers can't rely on loyalty from even new backbenchers, let alone the veteran ones. Yeah. But away from that, Carolyn describes the Labour Party as a broad church. The problem's been for some time, 6 years or so, we don't really know whether the vicar believes in God. We've got an agnostic vicar in this broad church and he's not providing leadership. And I remember the last general election, Rishi Sunak was constantly asking Keir Starmer whether he believed in welfare reform because it was something that had to be done, and Keir refused to say during the election. So yes, they've been elected on a manifesto. They weren't elected on a manifesto that included promises of welfare reform, and actually Keir Starmer refused to say whether he'd do it during the election. A lack of underlying philosophy. But I mean, it's a reaction that's the politics. What we've inherited. In the real world, I'd come to you now, Valerie. Just to be clear, the Department of Work and Pensions, DWP, said it expects 3.2 million families, a mixture of current and future recipients of the PIP payment, to lose out. What do you think of this? Does this affect you or people you know, Valerie, in North Yorkshire?
Yes, it does. My son had a stroke 2.5 years ago. It's left him with no real speech. When I discovered him, when he'd had the stroke, he was just talking gobbledygook. Anyway, he was rushed to hospital. Since then, he's had the capability for work last year. I mean, they've got all the details. He'll never get better. He had an accident, so he can't walk very well either. Terrible. He suffers from PTSD through a violent knife attack a few years ago. Valerie, can I ask you a question? Do forgive me for interrupting you, but it's just to understand whether or not
he's been able to get PIP. And if he has, how worried are you and is he about losing out on it? Because it seems like, based on what's proposed, he might not.
I don't think he will, but obviously he's very worried, very stressed. They know all the details. It's just ridiculous. He's got all these forms to fill in which he can't. Right. I tried to help him. I'm 82, but I tried to help him. Yeah, but this morning he's seen a benefits advisor. Right. But they are definitely picking on the wrong people. It'll never work again. They've got all the details.
Well, I hear you, Valerie. And one of the things that you talk about, a number of callers phone in to say, is that it's almost impossible in the first place to get PIP, or it's very hard because of how challenging filling in the form is. But what you want to be able to do, thank you, Valerie, is discern between people like Valerie's son there, who clearly needs that benefit, and the conversation on the panel, and I suppose what the government are getting at, about the people that might not necessarily be in the same situation as her son. Jenny, you're in Norwich. Do you think we need to just address welfare reforms? Does this affect you, Jenny?
Hi, Rob. So first of all, I just want to tell you, you actually met my dad a few years ago in Guernsey when you were doing the Liberation Day thing.
Nice. Say hi to him.
He said you're the loveliest man.
That's very kind. What do you make of this, Jenny?
It's awful. I've just lost my PIP, and this is on the old system. I'm a below-knee amputee. I have real bad problems with my skin. I can't wear my prosthetic most of the time. I suffer really, really badly with my mental health. I'm currently on a waiting list for, counselling.
For whatever assistance that's required. Yeah, Jenny, they got in touch with you to say you've lost your PIP. Help us in real terms to understand. What does that do to you? What will that mean for you, Jenny?
Well, it means now that I've lost £412 every 4 weeks, which means I now have only £500 a month to live off of, which obviously I've got to pay things out of buying my necessities. Also, I haven't even been offered tailored help. So,
Jenny, let me ask you,
any MPs can support it.
Jenny, the question I've got is that if you could work, let's say, if somebody could help you into work, is that something that you would do? Is that an opportunity that you'd try and grab hold of?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but it should be done alongside PIP. But then PIP is designed for people in work. I need it to get to as well. I needed to get to hospital appointments, limb centre appointments, and buying equipment that I need.
Well, thank you, Jenny. I was going to say thank you for calling out, for everybody else for sharing your story. There's so many people on PIP that are really worried about this. We'll be taking your calls on this later, and we'll also be asked.